Good news. Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. Luke 2:10. It seems like every time we open the newspaper, we read nothing but bad news. We turn on the TV and we see nothing but horrible things happening around the world, and sometimes even next door. That's why I like to open my Bible before I read the newspaper or turn on the TV. The Bible is full of good news. Why? Because throughout its pages, God speaks. And when God speaks, He has a way of turning bad news into good news. God spoke to Moses from a burning bush near the base of Mount Sinai. Before that, the voice of the Lord had not been heard for nearly 500 years. God told him, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of captivity in Egypt. Well, that didn't sound like good news to Moses, since he had been run out of Egypt 40 years earlier with a bounty on his head. But it turned out to be good news for the Israelites, that he would eventually lead to the promised land. God spoke to Isaiah, saying, Whom shall I send? And Isaiah replied, Send me. But Isaiah discovered that being God's prophet wasn't necessarily good news. For one thing, much of his message sounded like bad news for the Israelites. When Isaiah complained, God told him, Don't worry, Isaiah, I am doing so much more in the world than you can see and understand right now. Then he gave Isaiah this word, The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and we will call him Emmanuel. Isaiah didn't know he was prophesying an event that would take place 700 years later, something that would be good news not only for Israel, but for all mankind. The angel Gabriel spoke to a teenage girl who was not yet married and told her she was going to have a child. Not only was Mary greatly troubled by the angel's sudden appearance, but being told that she was going to give birth out of wedlock was not good news, especially in a culture where premarital sex was punishable by stoning. But 9 months later, Mary gave birth to Jesus, and that is great news for everyone who puts their faith in him. Jesus spoke to his disciples not long before his arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane. I will soon be going away, he said. The disciples were sad and confused. This was not good news that they wanted to hear. But Jesus said, It is good for you that I go away, because then I can send the Comforter to you. And he was right. The bad news became good news, not only for those disciples, but for every disciple who believes and receives the Holy Spirit through their testimony. Jesus spoke from the cross at Calvary, crying out, It is finished. Immediately, Satan prepared the next day's headline, Son of God, crucified, man's hope destroyed. But 3 days later, the worst possible news became the good news. The death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus was God's plan from the beginning to bring salvation to the whole world, and that includes sinners like you and me. Are you going through a difficult time right now? Is your health failing? Is your marriage crumbling? Are you struggling to keep your head above water? If you were to write a headline over your life today, would it be bad news? Take heart. God is a master at taking bad news and transforming it. Whatever you are experiencing right now, it is not the end of the story. God's plan for your life is good, and it goes far beyond what you see and understand at this moment. Jesus Christ is the good news. Give him your life, and he will write a new headline for you.